I do one non-Zelda video, and I immediately throw myself into another one. I'm starting to think I have Stockholm Syndrome. But let's be real here. There was no other game I was looking forward to more in this console generation than the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, with God of War Ragnarok and Spider-Man 2 bringing up the rear. Noticing a pattern here. If you have any doubt that I was excited for Tears of the Kingdom, I even went out and I bought the limited edition Switch OLED and the amiibo that released alongside the game. I'm normally someone who's content with only buying one edition of a console, but if you can get me to get two, I think you've done something right.
After almost 4 years of patiently waiting, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is now available on the Nintendo Switch. The days, weeks, months, and years leading up to release have been nothing short of agonizing. Breath of the Wild was one of my favorite games of all time, and whatever was going to follow it up was definitely something to look forward to. But instead of moving on to another legend, Nintendo surprised the world by revealing that Breath of the Wild was getting a direct sequel. We didn't know how different the game was going to be from Breath of the Wild until E3 2021, when it was revealed that we would once again explore the skies above Hyrule similar to Skyward Sword, and the surface was seeing some changes as well. And with every little bit of info we got along with a final trailer that makes you reflect on life itself, I couldn't help but feel like I was back in high school waiting for the new Zelda. But the biggest thing that ended up being such a pain in the ass while waiting for Tears of the Kingdom was Nintendo's approach to the game's marketing campaign. For the longest time, it felt like Nintendo did not want to show the game off, and to me, that seems like you're either keeping something big a secret or you're not confident in the product you're releasing. And while I had a lot of confidence in the fact that Nintendo was going to deliver, it was hard seeing what exactly Tears of the Kingdom was doing differently to distinguish itself from Breath of the Wild.
It was pretty difficult for me to put my words together about how I feel about this game. I waited for this in full anticipation for 4 years, and even now, I'm still having a hard time believing that this game is even out. And I'm getting this out of the way right now. If you have any thoughts about playing Tears of the Kingdom, let me give you a couple of pieces of advice. Step 1, get the fuck out. Seriously, spoilers are everywhere for this video. I'm not leaving a rock unturned. So if you haven't played the game yet and you want to experience for the first time yourself, please stop watching this video and go do so. Number 2, you should probably play Breath of the Wild first. I mean, for fuck's sake, Tears of the Kingdom is that game's direct sequel. I think I'm finally ready to move on from this version of Hyrule and from Zelda in general for a while. So let's dive into Hyrule one last time and take a look at the story of The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
Lots of things have changed in Hyrule since Link and Zelda defeated Calamity Ganon. Restoration efforts are being made to rebuild the kingdom to its former glory, and a new royal guard is being established as well. However, we begin the game deep below Hyrule Castle. Link and Zelda are investigating this gloom that has been seeping up to the surface and making people sick. As they descend further down, they discover ancient ruins depicting the race of beings known as the Zonai, as well as murals that recount an ancient event known as the Imprisoning War.
Huh?
Okay, before anyone asks us, I was confused myself. This is not the same Imprisoning War as A Link to the Past. That Imprisoning War saw the Seven Sages working together with the Knights of Hyrule to seal Ganon and the completed Triforce away in the Sacred Realm. I'll get more into it in a little bit, but just know that this Imprisoning War and that Imprisoning War are two completely separate events. As the two make their way down further, they come across this shriveled corpse with a green arm pierced in its chest. When our heroes approach, the arm limps to the ground and a mysterious gemstone falls off of it, bouncing over towards Zelda. She picks up the stone and it begins to react to her power, but before she can make anything of it, the corpse crackles its way back to life and launches an assault that leaves Link without the use of his right arm and leaves the Master Sword in pieces. The corpse unleashes a wave of malice that lifts Hyrule Castle up into the sky. Ganondorf descends to the depths below, with Zelda seemingly falling to her demise. Link barely misses catching Zelda and she disappears into a flash of light. The green arm catches Link and the two teleport away to safety. When Link wakes up, he finds himself in a mysterious cave with a new arm, along with the Master Sword, the blade that has seen better days. By exploring more of the cave and finding some legwear,
Where the fuck is the shirt?
Link finds himself in the skies above Hyrule on a large landmass known as the Great Sky Island. With some exploring, Link reclaims Zelda's Purah Pad and comes across the door to the island's Temple of Time. But he has insufficient power to get inside, at least that's how it's explained to him by the source of Link's new arm, the spirit Rauru. He explains to Link that by visiting the shrines around the island and collecting the Lights of Blessing, he should be able to get inside. So through some classic Zelda exploration, he gets the lights, he finds a weird rock that shows him an image of his girlfriend wife princess, and watches Rauru fade into the breeze of the wind. Our hero then heads to the back area of the Temple of Time where he comes across this strange light that seems to react to the Master Sword. Link places the sword within it and it vanishes and reappears in front of Princess Zelda in an unknown location. The princess speaks to Link telepathically, begging him to find her, and now filled with determination, Link dives to the surface below and heads over to Lookout Landing, a base of operation for the restoration movement in Hyrule headed up by Purah of the Sheikah research team. Due to Ganondorf raising the castle into the air, an event dubbed by the citizens of Hyrule as the Upheaval, chaos has erupted throughout the four corners of the kingdom. The Rito tribe is being tormented by a blizzard and a food shortage, Zora's domain is being plagued with this toxic sludge, the Gorons are becoming lazy and unproductive after eating these strange rocks mined from Death Mountain, and the Gerudo tribe is not only suffering through a rampant sandstorm, but also the occasional Gibdo attacks. Reports are also coming in from across the land that Princess Zelda has been sighted all over Hyrule. So, instead of sending the Sheikah scouts to do anything about it, Purah tasks Link with investigating the four regions to help the tribes of Hyrule and locate Princess Zelda. You know, you're lucky I like you. This is the point at which the game begins to open up its world to you just like Breath of the Wild did. You once again have the freedom to do whatever, whenever, but unlike in Breath of the Wild where they didn't really push you to complete one particular region first, Tears of the Kingdom kind of nudges you to head towards the Hebra region first, which I would also recommend. For my first playthrough, I did Zora, Rito, Goron, and Gerudo, but for this playthrough, I did Rito, Gerudo, Goron, and then Zora. What Tears of the Kingdom does to make these quests feel more distinguished from Breath of the Wild's story quests is by having these characters go through their own battles and development that leads to some welcome character growth. Teba may have been the champion descendant last time, but Tears of the Kingdom focuses on his son, Tulin, as he learns what it means to be a true Rito warrior, and it's cute. It also helps that he has a much better design in Tears of the Kingdom, and I swear to God, if I ever see this picture of Tulin again on my timeline, I will commit war crimes. Yunobo started his own mining company in Yunobo-ko, but due to an encounter with Princess Zelda, he ends up being mind-controlled through this mask and was made to mine up this marble rock roast that is slowly corrupting the Gorons. Once the mask is off, Yunobo seems to have changed the most since his last appearance in Breath of the Wild. He was the biggest coward you've ever seen in that game, and now he won't even hesitate to save his friends and family, even if it means spin dashing off of a ledge into the depths of fucking Death Mountain. Riju is pushing to master her new lightning powers and has grown into a strong and noble chief of her people. She was probably my favorite companion to travel with in the game. Something about these two traveling and fighting together just makes me happy. Sidon, though, probably has my favorite arc in the game. So get this, Sidon, he's getting married! Yeah, to this girl, Yona. Oh, I'm happy for them. They're adorable. When you get to Zora's domain, Sidon is preoccupied with keeping the water supply of the domain clean and doesn't jump to action like he normally would, and that's because deep down he's afraid of losing those close to him again, just like what happened to Mipha. But with Yona's encouragement, he's back to his old smiley self again. When your companions reach the source of each region's dilemma, they find another of those mysterious stones within these four temples, and come into contact with spirits of their ancestors. These guys were sages that utilized these secret stones to fight with the ancient king of Hyrule in the imprisoning war against the Demon King. Even with the power of all the sages, they still couldn't take him down, so in a last-ditch effort, the king of Hyrule sacrificed himself to seal the Demon King away. Each of the sages later gives their vow to the Sage of Time that their respective sages would awaken again and stand with Link when the Demon King would return. With the four regions taken care of, Princess Zelda is spotted at Hyrule Castle. Link heads over to investigate, only to discover that she was actually Phantom Ganon the entire time. Okay, I'll give him a little credit, I actually didn't see that coming. The new sages come to Link's aid, then the puppet of the Demon King is dispatched. Through investigating some Zonai ruins in Kakariko Village and in the Faron region, Link discovers the existence of the spirit sage Minoru, who asks Link to build her a Zonai construct body, and upon retrieving her secret stone in the Spirit Temple, tells Link what all happened with the ancient sages, the Demon King, and Princess Zelda. Link can also discover most of this through finding these dragon tears that are scattered around the map on these geoglyphs, so if you aren't discovering Zelda's fate one way, you'll figure it out another way. So when Zelda disappeared near the beginning of the game, she was actually transported through time to the ancient past, where she meets the first monarchs of Hyrule, King Rauru of the Zonai, and Queen Sonia of the Hylians, who are also both the ancient ancestors to the royal family of Hyrule. So Zelda has goddess and goat dragon blood flowing through her veins? What are the Zonai actually? Are they goat people, dragons, goat dragons? Anyway, with wisdom from Minoru, who is in fact Rauru's older sister, the group attempted to find a way to get Zelda home to the present, but before an answer could be found, the Gerudo King Ganondorf launched an attack on Hyrule, which was countered with a combined assault from Rauru, Sonia, and Zelda.
Biden blast!
The king of the Gerudo swore fealty to Rauru, only to stay close to the royals, and he ends up killing Queen Sonia and takes her secret stone to transform himself into the Demon King and unleash his army onto the kingdom of Hyrule. Mourning the loss of his queen, Rauru gathers the sages to take Ganondorf down, and with the battle seemingly lost, he sacrifices himself to seal Ganondorf away. After Zelda meets with the sages like we were told earlier, she receives the broken Master Sword from Link in the future. Realizing the true reason she was sent back in time, she undergoes a forbidden ritual known as Draconification, in which an individual swallows a secret stone and transforms into an eternal dragon, in order to use her sacred light to repair the Master Sword and make it back to the present time. So knowing the fate of his sword and his princess, Link tracks down the Light Dragon and retrieves the Master Sword, the blade that... Oh, this feels a lot heavier now. With the Master Sword repaired and the sages united, Link takes the fight to the depths below Hyrule Castle, where Ganondorf awaits. The two begin their legendary duel. In desperation, Ganondorf swallows his secret stone, and his whole fucking forearm, holy shit, and transforms into the malice-spewing Demon Dragon. With some welcome assistance from the Light Dragon, Link comes out on top and Ganondorf is finished for good, as in he turns into a literal fucking nuke.
Let's eat! Oops!
With the threat of the Demon King no more, the spirits of Rauru and Sonia not only restore Link's arm back to normal, but also restore Zelda to her original form. Link and Zelda are finally reunited, and along with the other sages, they swear to Minoru that they will continue to protect Hyrule before she joins her king and queen in the afterlife, ending Tears of the Kingdom. I can't say this narrative is anything stellar, because when you really begin to think about it, the story kind of begins to fall apart. I'm very thankful that there is more story in general, and how this game structures its events doesn't lead any characters, barring one, feeling underdeveloped or one-dimensional. With how things are set up, the story does a good job at getting the player involved and wanting more, and that's also partially because the game does the memory system from the previous game better, and it has a more rewarding payoff of the questions the memories ask throughout the narrative. I'm glad the sages are given more screen time in comparison to not only how these characters were basically a means to an end in Breath of the Wild, but also in comparison to the champions from last time, and seeing them actually interact with each other was great, if only for a small moment. But Jesus, could we have done something differently with these after dungeon cutscenes? Do you guys remember what I said in Breath of the Wild that I felt like each Divine Beast felt kind of samey? That's how these cutscenes are in Tears of the Kingdom, but I swear the pacing and the script are damn near the same for every single one.
Demon King? Secret Stone? Demon King. Secret Stone.
Secret Stone? Demon King?
Nanomachines.
Marriage?
Friendship.
When you say the champions of Breath of the Wild, they each had something different to say to Link, but here it's the same thing every time. Like, I get it already. Can we move on, please? It's baffling to me how this was the part of the story they got traditional with, and I don't even know if it's the right term to use in this situation, because I'm pretty sure not even saving the giants in Majora's Mask was this repetitive, and they were all the same fucking guy. Well, at least the memory cutscenes are better handled here, since not only are they showing events we had no knowledge of, but we also aren't aware of the end result of the events they are retelling. I'm not a fan how the memories are tied to a specific location on the map. When I went after these for the first time, my second one was Sonia getting her back blown out by Ganondorf. No, I'm not rewriting that part of the script. Now, to be fair to the game, there's a rune that tells you which geoglyphs to go for first to get the events told in chronological order, but there's still that small chance of players being spoiled, you know? I do like Rauru and Sonia as characters, but I wish we got to spend some more time with them. These were the parental figures Zelda needed in Breath of the Wild, but they were both underutilized, I felt. The ancient sages, though, who the fuck cares? They aren't given names, their faces aren't shown. You could tell me their faces aren't modeled and I believe you. Oh my god, their faces aren't modeled. Nothing is done with them, which is part of the reason why the post-dungeon cutscenes are so samey. Oh, I'm your ancestor, we fought a tall buff dude, here's a pebble, now fuck off.
I mentioned earlier that the story kind of falls apart if you really think about it a bit more, so let's get into that.
Sonia states that her and Rauru share a blood connection with Zelda, but both Sonia and Rauru are killed during the events of the Imprisoning War. And unless there's a goat child running around off-screen, the events of this game should not happen. Congrats, Zelda, you stumbled upon a time paradox. Especially since the entire game is running off of a closed time loop. Barely anyone in the present talks about the Calamity. There is little to no mention of the champions, despite the fact that no one could shut the fuck up about them in the last game. The Divine Beasts, the Guardians, the Shrines, hell, the fucking Shrine of Resurrection is just gone, all with no explanation as to why. Some people remember who Link is from the last game, and some act like they've never met him before. And I'm sorry, but how does no one bring up the completely obvious connection between Calamity Ganon and Ganondorf? Oh, speaking of, I hate to do this, Ganondorf story-wise was a huge disappointment. This version of the King of Gerudo has the character depth the equivalent of a kiddie pool.
All I could find was his shoebox. My statement still stands.
which is as deep as his character from Ocarina of Time. You know, the game that came out 25 fucking years ago. He's power hungry. And that's it. And it sucks because he is so damn entertaining on screen. Especially because of this face. He looks like he just got 11 chicken nuggets in his Happy Meal. Matthew Mercer's performance as Ganondorf was fantastic, and that, along with how entertaining he is in the moment, makes him slightly better than the Ganondorf we saw in Twilight Princess for me. At least this Ganondorf was the main villain the entire time. Link is about the same as last time, understatement of the fucking century right there. He gets his moments, but he had them in Breath of the Wild, so whoop-de-fucking-do. Zelda at least came out a bit better. Oh my lord, this poor woman. 100 years of keeping Calamity Ganon at bay wasn't enough, apparently. Yes, Zelda, I would still love you if you were a worm. Oh, do you guys want to be sad? If the beginning of the game does take place before the timeline split, there are 2 other timelines where she's stuck with the Light Dragon. You're welcome. I do like a couple of the new characters, though. Yona is a great addition for the Zora cast, and I'm so happy Sidon found someone else. Joshua is the best kid character in the series, full stop. She's out here doing her best. She's amazing.
So despite its issues, Tears of the Kingdom gets a plastic metal spray painted to look like silver. Did its best. But the gameplay once again makes up for all the story shortcomings, and if you think there's not a lot to talk about, ooh, you are in for a surprise.
Link plays exactly the same as Breath of the Wild. There are a few tweaks here and there. Flurry rushes are a bit faster, bullet time takes a chunk of stamina instead of the gauge depleting over time. Link can throw inventory items shot put style, and he can skydive again like in Skyward Sword. Of course, the Sheikah Slate abilities from last time are all gone, but they sort of return as either items or the new abilities Link can get on the Great Sky Island. Ascend is probably the coolest addition. If you're close enough to the ceiling, you can rise through it and pop out at the top of whatever structure you're trying to pass through. If you position yourself just right, you can either completely negate certain obstacles and puzzles, or make traveling extremely easy. I try to use it as much as I can to get around climbing everywhere, which is still fun to do, don't get me wrong, but if I can ascend to a higher plane, I'm gonna do so. Fuse entirely seems like a response to the complaints about weapon durability from Breath of the Wild. You can take anything you find, like materials, enemy parts, environmental elements, bookshelves, and even other weapons, and fuse them together. While a lot of the combinations might not do much, more often than not, the combos have some fun effects. Most of the time, your weapons will do more damage and have higher durability. If you want to grab some weapons with elemental effects, you can attach something like a Fire Lizalfos horn or a Dragon horn to get the same effect. I slapped an opal gem onto a spear and got a makeshift water rod, but actually fusing it to a proper magic rod handle, it becomes much more effective, especially at cleaning up this icky paint-like goop. And before you ask, yes, you can fuse things to your Master Sword. Hey, can we put this joke in? No, I don't care that everybody else has done it. I think it's funny. Okay, cool. Hey, here's a funny joke about fusion with the Master Sword.
Yeah, I couldn't get this rock off of it, but it's still pretty cool, right?
You can fuse a minecart onto your shield for a makeshift skateboard, or a rocket to your shield for a portable Revali's Gale. Literally, there are hundreds of combinations and possibilities with fusion, and the mechanic can either give you the coolest looking weapons you've ever seen, or something as stupid as the Fierce Deity Sword. You can also fuse materials to your arrows for different effects as well. My only problem with fusing for arrows is the pause for selecting the materials, especially when you want to use a material multiple times, like with bomb flowers or choo-choo jellies. It's not super annoying, but when you're using these fused arrows constantly when in combat, it can break the pacing sometimes. Recall is a sort of reworked stasis. Instead of building up and releasing kinetic and potential energy, you can reverse an object's momentum and essentially send it back in time. You got a spike ball heading towards you? Recall that son of a bitch and not only save yourself from the worst concussion of your life, but maybe you might be able to take out the asshole that sent it towards you. Fuck you, Steve. Last but not least, there's Ultra Hand, which is essentially a better Magnesis from last time. For starters, you can pick up stuff other than just metal shit, automatically bettered. We could stop here and I'd be satisfied, but you also get to manipulate the axis of an object that it sits on, which took a bit to get used to, but it became damn near second nature. But moving things around isn't its main purpose. It's building. Link can find Zonai devices around Hyrule that he can use to create different machines and vehicles, and considering the amount of devices available like fans, rockets, tires, balloons, bombs, cooking pots, on top of a bunch of other shit, again, the possibilities seem limitless. The only real limit that you have with them is your energy cells. Once they deplete, your vehicle just stops whatever it's doing. You can increase them using these crystallized charges you can find to make more of them. I didn't feel like I really needed to upgrade it all the way for this review. I had more than enough to do what I needed. And those vehicles and devices are going to come in handy when traversing the world because Hyrule has seen a lot of changes compared to when we explored it last time. The surface is, for the most part, geographically the same, but lots of changes have been made across the map. The biggest addition to the surface is caves. There are caves everywhere. Where these were last time, I'm not sure, but they're a great addition regardless. I like exploring them to find treasures, armor sets, gemstones, and whatever the fuck these things are. I guess killing these frog things gives you these gemstones you can use to get more equipment, which is cool, I guess, but I don't feel like going to every single cave system in order to get absolutely everything. Almost the entirety of the Hebra region is covered in snow instead of just half of it. All the lava surrounding Death Mountain has dried up and created new pathways, and since it's not hot, we don't have to deal with any more sudden combustions. The Gerudo Desert has some new sand pits and sand streams laid about, and tons of specific landmarks have seen some major changes. The Typhlo ruins are no longer shrouded in darkness. Hateno Village is going through some sort of mushroom phase, I guess? Like, what is happening here? For the most part, Hyrule Castle is safe to explore, at least the bottom half. Half of the bottom half, anyway. Well, at least it's a bit easier to traverse since we don't have all this malice lying around. Instead, there's a whole bunch of gloom lying around here and other areas in the kingdom. In Breath of the Wild, coming into contact with Malice caused Link to move slower and gradually lose health, but with the gloom and Tears of the Kingdom, coming into contact with it won't impede your movement, but it will nullify your hearts, making it impossible to recover them without specific healing items, or until you're exposed to the surface or specific locations in the depths. So we've known about the skies being a new addition since the game was first shown off in 2021, but we had no knowledge of the depths pretty much until launch. Hyrule has a ton of new chasms spread around that Link can hop on down to in order to reach the depths. It's a dank hellscape with weird trees, grass, materials, and a complete inverse of the surface's elevation. What are the tallest mountains on the surface are now the deepest canyons and valleys in the depths. Any body of water is just a wall, and it's dark down here. Like, dark. Most of the enemies located here are inflicted with gloom, so getting hit by those could pretty much be a death sentence in the early game if you're not careful. If you want to illuminate your surroundings and get rid of some of the gloom that you're inflicted with, head over to the light routes to expand your map, increase your visibility, and give you a new warp point. I like the depths, but I think the lack of different biomes within it makes it a bit less interesting. The only time something like that happens is under Death Mountain, which is where all the really hot Death Mountain shit from last game is. Other than that, everywhere in the depths looks the exact same. It's all bluish green grass and no tights forever, my guy. I do like how under all the villages in Hyrule there are ancient mines in the depths. You can also find a lot of the amiibo gear from the previous games in the depths as well. There is one new amiibo costume this time, and it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I feel like a Cedar Point mascot. What I think is cool is that the locations of the light routes in the depths are also the locations of the shrines on the surface. Yeah, the shrines are back, and they're functioning exactly like how they did in Breath of the Wild. I do think that not only are the shrines of much better quality this time around, but they also make better use of the abilities in this game compared to how Breath of the Wild used its abilities in its shrines. The amount of times I was laughing in excitement when I completed a new puzzle is staggering. There are lots of shrines that show you the basics of what you can do with your abilities and Zonai contraptions, and give you a small taste of the bigger possibilities to inspire you. I didn't get as creative as I thought I would, but I was still solving puzzles with solutions I don't even think some of the developers thought of, and I think that's pretty cool. But more often than not, my solution for both shrines and for certain obstacles outside was something I like to call big stick, big stick, big stick, big stick. If you thought there were too many shrines in the last game, I feel sorry for you, because there are 152 of those fuckers now. 120 of them on the surface, and the other 32 scattered around the Sky Islands, which are unfortunately the most disappointing part of the game. I had fun exploring them, don't get me wrong, but there are not enough of them scattered around the skies. The concept of the Sky Islands peaked with the Great Sky Island, and that is at the beginning of the damn game. There are maybe 2 or 3 sets that were fun to explore other than the Great Sky Island. Most of the other ones either have some diving challenges, which were fun, or they have the same setup of a gacha machine that gives you a random assortment of Zonai devices in exchange for a few Zonai charges, the launcher with a turning mechanism, which was my third form of travel, and the same type of shrine where you have to bring this giant green crystal back to the base of the shrine. Like, I swear, a couple of these are copy and pasted and then edited slightly. When the islands get interesting, it's when they're lead-ups to some of the dungeons. Legit though, these are some of my favorite parts of the game. Folks, we are so close to having some of the best dungeons the franchise has ever seen. They aren't quite there yet, but with like 1 or 2 tweaks, they could be even better than they already are. So get this, the dungeons have their own aesthetics, have proper maps, and have proper traditional design. They still feel open enough to not go against the core design of the game. I think the puzzles here are a bit better than anything we saw with the Divine Beast, but instead of activating 5 terminals, you have to use the respective Sage Powers on 4 or 5 objects in order to unlock the door to get to the boss. The Sage Powers feel kind of like dungeon items, in the sense that you need them to explore further in the dungeons, but aside from like 1 or 2 instances most of the time, You're really only using them to either spin a propeller or zap a panel. The Fire Temple is by far the best dungeon in the game. I think it has the best blend of being a traditional dungeon and being an open-styled dungeon. I used abilities a lot here in order to clear railways, change the orientation of the rails, and take enemies out from a distance. The Lightning Temple is a close second. It's the most contained of any of the dungeons, so aesthetically, I feel right at home. This is by far my favorite light beam dungeon in the franchise too. The Wind Temple is a big boat. That's awesome. There are also these smaller ships that you can bounce off of and glide around. Fuck the lasers though.
Link!
The Water Temple aesthetically doesn't do anything for me. A lot of the puzzles that you think you'd have to use Sidon's water power for can be done with anything that produces water, so I'm really only using Sidon for these gears that you have to turn, and that's it. Is it even accurate to say that Hyrule Castle and the Spirit Temple are traditional dungeons? They have bosses and heart containers at the end of them, but I'll be damned if they're dungeons. Hyrule Castle is just a scavenger hunt for Phantom Ganon Zelda until the boss fight in the Sanctum, and the Spirit Temple is 2 rooms. 2 rooms! The Thunderhead Isles and Construct Factory did better jobs as a temple, so I don't know why the Spirit Temple wasn't the Construct Factory. But it took so damn long to do the entirety of the Spirit Sage quest. From the time I started the quest in Kakariko Village to the time Minoru told me to go get the Master Sword I already had on my back, I was doing the same quest for almost 2.5 hours. If I could get the champion abilities from the previous game back, I would in a heartbeat. These Sage's abilities are poorly implemented and sloppy, which is weird to say for a first-party Nintendo game. The way you activate them is all sorts of awkward. You have to run up to the stage and activate the power with A, and then hit A again in order to use it. And that's really hard to do when they're running all over the place. Like, sit the fuck down, I'm trying to get wet. The only sage that did this right is Tulin. His ability brings out a gust of air that can propel you forward. It's very useful for traversal, but damn near useless in combat. Riju casts a concentrated area that you can shoot with your arrow to bring down a concentrated lightning strike. I never use this outside of the dungeon. It's damn near useless. Yunobo essentially has a fiery spin dash you can use to break these gloom rocks and groups of rocks in the caves in the depths. I don't use it very often for combat, but it is useful when I don't have some sort of mining tool on me. Sidon gives you the power of water that you can either shoot out as a projectile or keep on your person as a shield. It's not stellar. It doesn't last as long as it should, and unless you're using a specific weapon, you're better off using other options during combat. Minoru takes the form of a giant Zonai construct, and I did not use her abilities outside of her segment in the Spirit Temple. I may have liked the sages as characters better, but the champions earned their titles thanks to their abilities. Also, did anyone think of Infinity War when Link got a new sage avatar? His hand is literally a fucking infinity gauntlet. Thanks to the upheaval, most of the weapons you find lying around are damaged beyond repair, so in order to make up for it, you can use other weapons or enemy horns to enhance weapons. Each family of weapons even has their own bonus effects. For example, Gerudo weapons will double the base damage of whatever material it's fused to, leading to weapons doing damage in the triple digits in some instances, and Royal Guard weapons double damage output when they're about to break. You can find pristine weapons in the depths, giving some more incentive to explore down there, and pristine weapons have better durability and damage, which will of course give you better fused weapons. Enemy variety is more plentiful this time around, but I still think that maybe 3 or 4 more enemies would have made things perfect. It still feels like I'm seeing the same enemies all the time in every area, with the exception of the Gerudo Desert, because that's the only area where you'll naturally find Gibdos. Oh, nice to see that they're finally back. Wait, why are they coming out of these bug nest things? Oh god, why are they crawling at me? Oh fuck, they have bug mandibles. Why are they bug zombies? I'm sorry, they fly now?
They fly now!
So let's run through some more of the new enemies then, shall we? First up, we got the Arakuda, which... Oh. Anyway, the Zonai constructs are essentially the guardians of this game, but more so the guardian scouts. They're programmed to defend the Sky Islands from threats, and unfortunately for you, you count as a threat. The constructs will fight with whatever shit they find, but they're the only enemies that can fuse things to their weapons, so keep that in mind before you rush into battle. Horriblins join the ranks of the monsters, and I'm sorry, I can't take these guys seriously, especially when they're making noises like this. I will say, they were a great unexpected force to encounter, and I was genuinely terrified when I saw a group of them for the first time. Boss Bokoblins join the ranks as well. They're bigger Bokoblins that do more damage, and they like to blow the trumpet. Cool. I kind of wish we got boss variants of each of the core 3. You know, like, throw in the Dynalphos and the Bulblins as a variant of Lizalfos and Moblins. My new favorite enemies are the Evermeans. They're sentient trees that try to smack you, but I love them for their names alone. Evermean. Someone on the development team is really proud of themselves. Like-likes are back, and they have much more obvious weak points compared to their last 3D appearance. Also, the like-likes have little feet now, and I think that's adorable. Of course, all the regular enemies return from last time, minus the Guardians. Those things are just fucking gone. That goes for the bosses as well, and we even got some new ones joining the ranks. Flux Constructs are the boss variant of the Zonai enemies, and these guys were fine to fight. Using Ultra Hand and Rewind, these things become your bitches. The Froxes can only be found in the depths, and if I had to compare them to something, consider them the modern take on a King Dodongo. But fighting this thing kinda just makes me miss King Dodongo. My favorite boss to fight is Gleeok. My man, motherfucking Gleeok, baby! Fighting these things feels like the closest thing Zelda has ever had to a super boss. There is so much shit happening during these fights. They launch lasers, they push you back with wind, they can fly.
I'm back, bitches!
They're mean sons of bitches too, especially the King Gleeok, which has one head of the 3 main variants. You can also find a Malice-infected one in the Gleeok Den. I'm sorry, the what? The dungeon bosses are also much better than last time, and that's coming from someone who really liked the Blight Ganons in Breath of the Wild. Muktarok isn't anything too special, and he can be annoying to get to, especially during the second phase. Queen Goma is pretty cool. She can stir up sand tornadoes and spawn other Gibdos around to distract you. Excuse me, sir, can you please leave me alone? I'm not selling my kidneys, sir, please, sir. Marbled Goma is probably my favorite version of Goma ever. It's such a different take on the enemy, and I love using the arena to launch Yunobo at him. Fulgaro was awesome. You can use arrows to get to his weak spot, or you can just dive straight into him with proper timing. This is the only way I will ever fight this boss ever again. I can't talk about the boss of Hyrule Castle without talking about the other overworld boss in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Gloom Hands. These are by far the scariest enemy in the entire franchise. Worse than the Wind Waker Redeads, worse than Death's Sword, and more terrifying than any Guardian you could ever encounter. They will chase you. They will grab you. They will kill you. And trust me, they will stop at nothing to make sure you die. It feels so damn satisfying taking these things down. I prefer to use bomb arrows or electric chew jellies. Alright, I defeated the big man. Why is my Master Sword glowing? Oh, hi, buddy! Phantom Ganon is back with a vengeance. This is by far my favorite interpretation of Phantom Ganon. The way he moves, the way he attacks, the way he enters, it's all terrifying. And there's like 8 of these fuckers in the Hyrule Castle boss. The Sea's Construct can either be somewhat challenging or the easiest thing you will ever fight in a Zelda game. Quick tip, have a cannon attached to one of Minoru's arms. You're welcome. Master Koga has a long-running quest in the depths, and he has 4 different boss fights with him driving different Zonai vehicles, and all of them are better than the single fight he had in Breath of the Wild. I do wish he had his voice actor from Age of Calamity, but I'll let it slide. The entire lead-up and sequence to the final boss was absolutely amazing. So you start the game traveling down in these Zonai ruins under Hyrule Castle, and eventually you reach Ganondorf's corpse. When you're ready to go take him out, you travel through more ruins filled with enemies and gloom hands until you eventually reach the ruins from earlier again, now rifled with enemies, all while a new version of the original music plays. Once you reach the chamber where Ganondorf was, you dive down into a pit into the Gloom's lair, and eventually reach Gloom's origin. After a horde battle with the sages, Link takes Ganondorf on, but not before he hits you with the rawest transformation back into his hydrated self. Everything about this boss fight is incredible. The atmosphere, the music, his attacks. The final boss could have just been this phase and I would have been satisfied. And then we get to phase 2.
Alright, that's good. Okay. Alright, that's good. That's good!
For centuries, mankind has looked for the definition of peak. And I think we found it. Phase 3 is another spectacle boss fight like Dark Beast Ganon was in Breath of the Wild, but I think it's done better here than it was there. Now, as much as I want to continue praising this game, there are a few negative things I need to talk about. I touched on it earlier, but there are too many Bring Green Rock Cure shrines, much like there were too many Test of Strength shrines in the last game. I love the Eventide Island / Master Trial styled combat shrines, and I'm baffled there wasn't more of them. Koroks are back, and to no surprise, they are just as mad to me yet again. There are these new backpack Koroks where you need to bring them to his buddy, and then you'll get 2 Korok seeds instead of just 1. More often than not, I don't bother with them, and it's not like there's a new reward for getting all the seeds. From what I understand, it's the same as Breath of the Wild, so if you weren't a fan of it there, I don't know what to tell you. The Koroks deserve what's coming to them, honestly. To be honest, there were a lot more moments where I was just like, oh, it's just like Breath of the Wild. And to be fair, I don't think that's a bad thing. but it felt like there were quite a few moments where they were really afraid to change or fix something that was an issue previously, and are either just as bad or annoying as last time, or in some instances made even worse. And you can tell they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, because they still have the open world style tutorial for you at the beginning of the game, and then they railroad you into a linear tutorial sequence to get the paraglider. I don't mind having a linear sequence in a non-linear Zelda game. Hell, that's what some of the lead-ups to the dungeons are. But do something like that before you throw me out into the open world proper, you know? And as fun as it is, building Zonai devices can break the pace sometimes. Like, it's weird. I think when you're just exploring around, it's fine, but when you're going through shrines and dungeons, having to build can feel sort of tedious. And I'm sorry, but getting to the Great Fairies this time around felt extremely tedious. It doesn't help that it was extremely confusing as to where to start with this side quest, since you have to talk to the Clover Gazette and Hebra first in order to even get the thing to show up. Then once you do finally unlock the Great Fairies, it's a bigger pain in the ass to upgrade your clothing compared to Breath of the Wild. Not only does it feel like it takes even more materials to upgrade your clothes, but they also have a service fee. Look lady, this economy is already shit enough. I didn't have to pay for this last time, why now? Especially since Tears of the Kingdom is probably the hardest game to get rupees in. More often than not, I got my cash in the last game from the boxes in enemy camps and the various gems I would find around the map. In this game, it was rare to find an actual rupee on the ground somewhere, and all the prices of the gemstones have been significantly reduced. I'll fully admit there were a few times I used the duplication glitch just so I could get some ready cash on me. Am I proud of it? I don't fucking care. I bought the game myself, I'll play it however I damn well please. Graphically, it's slightly above Breath of the Wild. It performs better, the lighting looks to be improved, and there weren't as many frame drops here as there was previously. Musically speaking, it's great. It reuses a few tracks from Breath of the Wild, but there are also definitely more varied compositions here than there was last time. All the boss themes are great, the dungeon themes are great, the new area themes are great, they butchered Hyrule Castle unfortunately, but all the music during the showdown with Ganondorf makes up for it. I'd still say it's on the lower end of the ranking for Zelda soundtracks, but it's definitely an improvement over what we had last time. Tears of the Kingdom was the game I've been waiting for since its announcement back in 2019. It proves that you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every new installment and does so much with what they already had to work with. The new abilities are great, the world is just as fun to explore as last time, the new additions to said world are great, the new dungeons are fun, and it all culminates into a very fulfilling experience. But as much as I love it, even I have to admit that it's not a perfect game. While it improves on some of the shortcomings of Breath of the Wild, it either introduces new ones or makes some of them even worse. Its poorly thought out story, weird pacing in certain areas, and baffling design choices are definitely strikes against it. But it's not enough for me to say that this game is worse than its predecessor, and while I can say that I love Tears of the Kingdom a bit more than Breath of the Wild, I can't rank the game above or below it. They're both tied for my favorite Zeldas. Maybe with time I'll decide which one is better in the long run, but even I'll admit that for as great of a game as it is, it's pretty much Breath of the Wild again. Not a reimagining like with, say, Link Between Worlds. The game does enough differently to not have that descriptor placed upon it. If you loved Breath of the Wild, you're going to love Tears of the Kingdom, but if you weren't the biggest fan of Breath of the Wild, there's not much I can say that will convince you to give Tears of the Kingdom a shot. I loved my time with these two games, but for the next adventure in the world of Zelda, I'm ready to move on from this version of Hyrule. This Link and Zelda have earned their rest. Like I said at the beginning of the review, if you're planning on playing Tears of the Kingdom, but still haven't played Breath of the Wild, play Breath of the Wild first, and then eventually come back to play Tears of the Kingdom. And as obvious as it is, don't play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom back to back. There is a reason I took a break between these two games, and I'm so glad that I did.
Well, the next time we take a look at the Zelda series, I'll probably be doing a marathon for all the handheld games, but for the time being, I'm done with Zelda. I want to move on to something else. So I will see you guys next time for Hades. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all then.